Clemson's toughest battles facing formidable foes in 2023. Okay, so we just did the easiest foes, and we're going to talk about the toughest foes. Now, Big Al already gave us his toughest foes. He said Notre Dame, Florida State, and Duke. Now, you can let me know. Go ahead and let me know in the chat now if you think that's correct, or if there is maybe a team that you feel like could be missed or overlooked, if you will, from that group. All right, so let's jump right into this next topic. The toughest teams Clemson will face in 2023. Now, to identify these opponents, we got to start looking at the teams that Clemson could not conquer in 2022. And without a doubt, the team that dealt Clemson the biggest blow was the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. This year, Notre Dame will thankfully have to come and travel to Clemson. So at least Clemson won't have to worry about playing them in South Bend again. They get it in Death Valley, and we remember what happened last time they were in Death Valley. Not only was it to my opinion, one of the best college football games ever played, but Clemson walked away with a win, and they got to realize how difficult it is to score a touchdown in the West End Zone. Notre Dame still boasts an incredibly strong group of running backs. I mean, not only that, as Big Al mentioned, you have Sam Hartman at quarterback, and many experts believe that Notre Dame's offense is going to explode this year, specifically under Sam Hartman's leadership and his experience. I mean, the guy I think has almost I can't remember what I said on another show, but it's like either 12,000 over almost 13,000 passing yards, 110 touchdowns. He is obviously an amazing quarterback. And that just adds to the stable of running backs that they have in Logan Diggs, Audric Estime, and Chris Tyree. Those guys that destroyed Clemson last year, yeah, they're still there. Along with some young wide receivers in Jaden Thomas. You always have to watch out for a Thomas. You know my Thomases out there. Us Thomases, we don't play. And Tobias Merriweather. So it's going to be another big-time test for Clemson's defense and to see if they can contain them, which they really couldn't. But here's my thing. While fans should be concerned about Clemson's offense and Clemson's defense holding them, they should be more concerned about Clemson's offense. And that's what I'm trying to say is that the part of the problem versus Notre Dame was that the offense never got into a rhythm and the defense was constantly playing with poor field position, which was the same issue that happened later on in the end of the year against South Carolina. You constantly put your defense in a less than optimal position, and they're going to get exposed. Now, they got exposed more than I was expecting. I mean, that Notre Dame game was a disaster when it comes to the defense. I mean, that was a game that was so bad you were wondering, why did Clemson recruit Brian Bursey, KJ Henry, and Justin Maskell, Miles Murphy? Those guys seemed like they didn't even show up at all in that game. Tyler Davis, those guys felt like they didn't show up at all. I mean, Notre Dame used their multiple outside blockers and just plowed through the Clemson defensive line front. No problem. And they could very easily do it again. So that's why I have them as number one most difficult game of the year, even though it is a home game. We have to be honest with ourselves. That defensive line that was supposed to be the best defensive line in the country got exposed to the point to where fans were questioning Wes Goodwin and how good he is as a coach. Is that going to happen again next year? Let me know what you think. Let me know. Are you concerned? Are you as concerned about Notre Dame as I am? Maybe I'm overdoing it. You know, I overdo things. You know, I overreact to everything. But I do feel like Notre Dame is the scariest game on the schedule. Maybe I'm wrong. Let me know if I'm wrong. Now, moving on to the second game for me is right in line with Allen. Again, Allen, so far, we're two out of 3. And I can tell you, I can go ahead and give you a spoiler. We're again going to finish 2 out of 3 because I didn't pick Duke, even though I do think that is a challenging game. But moving on to the second most challenging game on the calendar for me is got to be the matchup. Again, another home matchup, but this time against Florida State. Earlier on in the season, the 4th game of the season, September 23rd. Well, if this game turns out to be a cakewalk for Clemson, if this turns out to be a situation where Clemson is up by 20 points again late in the third quarter, I would be shocked considering all the preseason hype surrounding Florida State. It would be all for nothing. I got to think, are the analysts correct? Is Florida State the new king of the ACC? All this buzz about the Seminoles going on and how well they're going to perform this season and how they're going to take these transfer portal guys and they're going to just wipe the table with Clemson. And they're going to retake their claim as the top, the cream of the crop, the champions of the ACC. They won 10 games for the first time since 2016. And that leads all the experts to say that they're now the best team in the ACC. Clemson's lost too much. Yeah, Clemson can reload on defense, but even with an offensive coordinator, a brand new offensive coordinator, Clemson can't hang because Florida State has better skill positions. Yeah, if you look at Florida State's offense, they do have a lot of really good skill position players. They have one of the best running backs in the country. They have a quarterback who's now a senior who a lot of people believe is a Heisman Trophy candidate. They have Michigan State's best wide receiver, 6'4". They have Johnny Wilson. But again, I tell you this, in Tallahassee, they were down by 20 points against the team that we feel like Clemson is better than this year. So while they may have improved, I think Clemson has improved. Again, it all kind of boils down to how well can Cade perform. But you have to think, if DJ can perform like that in an environment like that, why couldn't Cade perform better or equal in his home environment against Florida State? Add to those guys, transfer portal tight end Jaheim Bell, who I think is a great pickup for them, who was honestly ignored, grossly ignored by South Carolina. So they have definitely added to their talent. Trey Benson, talented. Wide receivers, talented. Quarterback, talented. Their offense is going to be one of the better ones in the country, I think. But are they going to be able to come to Death Valley and beat Clemson? We'll have to wait for the game to really be played. I don't like to make predictions like that this close to the game. But as the season goes on, I'll give you my prediction. The week of the game, I'll give you my prediction. But right now, I'm going to hold on to it. But I do feel like that it is the second most challenging game of the season. Everyone tells me it should be one of the toughest games for Clemson this year. If it ends up being a flop, then I say what? You know what? Forget all the analysts because y'all are no better than a weatherman. If the Florida State game ends up being a flop, I want some apologies from every single expert analyst out there. So my first two most difficult games of 2023 are Notre Dame, agreed with Allen, Florida State, again, agreed with Allen. And this is the game Allen picked Duke, considering it's the first game of the season. There's a lot of unknowns. But I can't pick Duke. I think Clemson will be able to handle their quarterback to the point where they don't have many other options, and then that will be the end of the game. I think Clemson is better overall as far as their roster is concerned, and later on in the game, they'll wear them down. I can't decide if I'm going to go to that game or not. It's an interesting game out there. I can't decide if I'm going to go. Durham, North Carolina. But for me, the third, let me know in the comments if you agree, we can't overlook the clash with in-state rival South Carolina, the Gamecocks. Let's face it, Clemson didn't come out on top last year. Clemson lost to the Gamecocks last year 31-30, committing a ton of mistakes and turnovers, fumbles, poor field position, punting, you name it, interceptions. They had a safety and a pick six and still couldn't win the game at home. Now, South Carolina fans like to remind me that they improved by 31 points from 2021. Look at all the progress that they have made. They improved from 0 points at home in 2021 to 31 points and a win in an away game, a hostile environment, last regular season game of the season. They improved by 31 points while Clemson improved by 0 points. From 2021 scoring 30-0, Clemson scored 30 again. And I get it. There's a lot to be excited about. You have Juice Wells at wide receiver. He's now a senior. He's now more in tune with Spencer Rattler. The question there is, which Spencer Rattler are you going to get? Are you going to get the superstar Spencer Rattler that they had at the end of the season? Or are you going to get the Spencer Rattler that couldn't seem to figure out how to play football and always picked on one player and forgot about Jaheim Bell so much that he left the team? Also forgot about Josh Van so much that his mama complained on Twitter. Are you going to get that Spencer Rattler, or are you going to get the one that beat Tennessee and Clemson back-to-back? I do have some concerns about Clemson being able to beat them again as far as those two players. But then when I look at the roster as a whole, I have some reservations about South Carolina. You mean to tell me that your two running backs that you're going to bring to the table this year are Juju McDowell and DeCarrion Joyner? That doesn't really excite me. That's your top running backs. Now, on the defensive side of the ball, I look down at that list and I see 9 guys that I could care less about. They don't excite me. The cornerbacks, though, they have some really good cornerbacks. Not much as far as a overall team. I think the South Carolina team may be worse, but they certainly will stand a chance because it will be a competitive game because, hey, guess what? That's what college football is all about, and that's what rivalry games are all about. I still have to feel confident about a victory in this game because I don't think any true Clemson fan would ever go into a South Carolina game thinking they don't have a chance, especially a Clemson team that recruits so well as they do, and a Clemson team that, again, will be at the end of the season after having Garrett Riley for, for what, 11 other games. So for me, the top 3 games, again, Notre Dame, Florida State, South Carolina. Those are the hardest games that I have on the list for the schedule in 2023. Hey, let me know what you think in the comments. Let's go through the comments, by the way, and let's let you join in with us here. Ruby Ridge gets in, says, I just wonder if the receiver core for Clemson is going to step up this year and stay healthy. Ruby, I wish I could tell you the answer to that. That's a very difficult question. I think that Clemson desperately needs guys like Adam Randall and Bo Collins, and maybe even a guy we always hear about, but we never see, Troy Stellato. Clemson has been plagued with some of their expected number 1 wide receivers being injured and not playing entire seasons. Is this the year where that cycle finally gets broken? Mike Reynolds says Clemson will beat the brakes off of the Chickens. Peter Woods will have a field day on Rattler. So, Mike Reynolds, I love your enthusiasm. I love your confidence. Let me ask you this, Mike. If South Carolina is not a difficult game, then what are your 3 difficult games? If you've already put it in the comments, I haven't seen it yet. Go ahead and let me know, Mike. If South Carolina is not it, who would be it? Andrew says South Carolina lost all but 1 defensive back. Their front 7 is hot garbage. They lost 3 offensive line. Their left tackle might miss the whole season, and they've lost all but 1 of their scholarship running backs. I'm not necessarily saying that this is a difficult game because of the rosters. You guys know me, and you guys know this rivalry. It's a difficult game because of the rivalry. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it could be another team. Tiggs gets in and says, I say Syracuse. Syracuse is a team that you can never be confident about beating. as bad as they are at times. John Sarian seems to agree with the Florida State comment, says they have a good duo in Travis and Benson, quarterback and running back. I agree with that. Clemson Carson says, hey, I hate to say it, but the one area that South Carolina is consistently better than us in is special teams. You know, what happened to the days where I felt like Clemson special teams were a threat to score? The CJ Spiller, the Jacoby Ford era is long gone. It seems like maybe it's just the nature of college football, but you don't see Devin Hester anymore. You don't see CJ Spiller and Jacoby Ford anymore. Maybe it's just college football. Maybe it's just the athletes and the way it is. I'm not sure. Andrew Watts gets in also and says the environment will be the hardest part of the game. That's true. That's true. Tiggs gets in even further and he says that he would put Duke and Syracuse above Notre Dame. Are you saying that those two teams will be more difficult of a game than Notre Dame? After what happened last year, I don't think I agree with that. The Notre Dame game to me has to be the most difficult game on the season.